I never thought that we'd have to make this kind of video. I'm sure a lot of you have seen at this point that last week we said at the end of the Cutting Class episode that we would be talking this week about the famous 1989 sci-fi film Slipstream starring Mark Hamill and others. Unfortunately, that is not the movie we're talking about because it turns out it was boring.
But here's the good news. We found an even worse movie to talk about today, still starring Mark Hamill. It's called Time Runner.
Mark Hamill is a time runner.
You're our last hope.
The future depends on his journey into the past.
Welcome to Big Name Bad Movie, the show where we talk about A-list stars and their worst movies. I'm Joe.
I'm Cameron.
Today we're talking about Time Runner from 1993 starring Mark Hamill.
You could be forgiven for being reminded of the 1982 film Blade Runner starring Harrison Ford, who was in another movie with Mark Hamill, Rise of Skywalker. But it's actually not a Blade Runner knockoff. It is, in fact, a Terminator knockoff, kind of.
It's one of those movies that clearly is trying to mooch off the audience of another film.
Yeah.
So they just call it Time Runner. Hopefully people get confused. Your grandmother will get confused enough to be like,
he was in the Star Wars movie.
He was in the Star Wars. This must be the one they talked about with the replicants.
This is the sequel, yeah.
Yeah. We open with a bunch of scientists. They're on a space station together, and aliens are invading. So lasers being shot, the whole, oh no, the aliens are invading. A group of scientists, and one of them says, we have to get a hold of Raynor, otherwise we are history.
Yeah.
Cut to Raynor, played by Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is running through the space station, lasers going off, he's being chased by aliens, and he shouts, Caroline! He runs up to his dying wife and holds her in his arms. Explosions happening around them, sparks flying, the space station's under attack. She looks up into his eyes lovingly and she says,
help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope.
Essentially, yeah. She just says, you're our last hope. Right. A nice little callback to Star Wars.
Yeah.
I like some self-aware writing here.
Yeah. And I will say also, like, the little opening with the aliens, like, attacking the city, which is an obvious miniature, it also looks like Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Like the city design or whatever. It's set in the distant future of 2022. I don't know if we said that.
Raynor escapes the alien invasion. He hops in an escape pod and he goes through a wormhole. He's transported. Whoa.
I guess by the scientists, right?
Yeah.
Unknowingly. Like he doesn't know it.
Yeah. They hit a button and they're like, send him back, send him to the past.
They press the time machine button.
They press, click, send him back. He goes 30 years into the past he's transported back to 1992, the day before he was born. So Raynor is now in the 90s. So we have text on the screen that says October 6, 1992. Cut to a different scene. Karen Donaldson has entered the chat. She is investigating a crashed UFO. Mark Hamill's not in the UFO, but it's presumably the one that he traveled through the wormhole in.
Yeah.
And they start scanning the UFO with, this is like one of my favorite first little prop details, with like an EDM laser.
Yeah. And
it looks like one of those low budget dubstep shows.
Try to relax your anus.
They realize the UFO is from the future and they're like, oh my gosh, this thing's from the future. And right as they're having this major realization, helicopter overhead and it lands, a bunch of henchmen, soldier guys get out, and we start the first of many absolutely gratuitous slow motion moments in the film.
So yeah, it happens multiple times in the film, but this is the first instance where it holds on shots for much longer than it should. And it seemed like they were planning this from the start. You can tell when a shot was not meant to be slow motion because it's like the frame rate is like super choppy, and these ones aren't. So they
planned this.
Yeah, they were planning. It's like we got to extend the runtime of this to feature length. Okay, we got to like just stretch this thing out as much as possible.
Pad the runtime as much as you can. I had to stop while I was watching this and make sure I hadn't accidentally rewound the movie and it wasn't playing the same slow motion sequence again.
In your defense, they probably replayed shots over and over again.
For sure. But the only thing the only action that's happening on screen is a bunch of soldiers are getting out of a helicopter. They're not attacking anyone. They're just walking. Yep. We see all of this. The slow-mo just continues. And as these henchmen are storming the excavation site of the UFO, and then this is where we meet Colonel Freeman. He's like our one of our main bad guys in the movie.
Donaldson, don't screw with me.
And immediately upon seeing him, I can't get it out of my head that he looks precisely like Randy Quaid
Yes.
from the Vacation movies. He looks exactly like Cousin Eddie.
Yeah. He looks like if Slim Shady and Randy Quaid had a baby.
Yeah. So Colonel Cousin Eddie comes out and he starts, investigating the UFO, and he's like, this is my jurisdiction now. And he tells Karen to beat it.
Yeah.
Cut back to Raynor. He wakes up in a barn on a farm after crash landing. For some reason, his UFO is miles away, his escape pod.
I guess he flew out.
And survived somehow. I don't know.
Sure.
But he just
and maybe he
wakes
had a
up.
parachute. I don't know. Yeah.
He wakes up in a barn, wanders into a farmhouse, and he doesn't know where he is. He's last thing that happened with him is he went through a wormhole.
Yeah.
He walks into the seemingly vacant farmhouse, and we have my favorite shot of the entire movie, where the camera pans over and we see a swimsuit calendar on the wall, and Raynor looks at it and the music goes. It seems like he is scared of babes.
Yeah.
He's realizing that he's in the past because the calendar says 1992.
Yeah.
The owner of the farmhouse comes in holding Raynor at gunpoint and is like,
because he's in his house.
Because he's in this man's house. Yeah. And he's like, who are you? Where are you from? And Raynor's like, what year is it? What year is it? And then this is where the movie does take a turn into just being a Terminator knockoff. He eventually gets the gun from the guy and says, like, give me your jacket.
Yes.
They
exactly
try the same scene.
They try to do the thing of like, give me your clothes, but it's not like Terminator where Arnold Schwarzenegger is naked in the movie.
Raynor already has
He's
reasonable
just fully
clothes
clothed.
on.
Like, I guess it's like vaguely futuristic, but it's not like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's any point. He's not trying to like blend in at all.
No, at this point he's completely confused.
He just wants to change.
He
just wants a wardrobe
He's like,
change.
where'd you get that drip, dude?
Dude, that's vintage.
He's like, that's
That's
crazy.
vintage where I'm from, dude.
Dude, in the future that'd be like 1,000 Starbucks, dude.
Dude, I saw that exact fit on Grail.
Raynor tracks down where his crashed escape pod should be and is like walking up to the excavation site where for some reason he knows where his escape pod landed. Mm-hmm. And so he just goes there, walks miles to it. And then as he approaches the excavation site where the pod should be, he drops a great line. He says,
Pod. What's happened to the pod?
great delivery from Mark Hamill, who we love. We love Mark Hamill.
Yeah. He's given it his all in this movie.
The pod.
It's just the plot is so incoherent. It's just like it was all for naught.
What's happened to the pod? Just the way he says it, though.
I thought he said, and I had subtitles on, so I'd have no excuse. I thought he said the pond. And I was like, what do you mean?
There used to be a body of water
It's
here.
like, wait, but you're from the future. Like, what?
They don't have water in the future, I guess.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's a callback to Slipstream, which we'll talk about not in this episode. Anyway.
No, you can catch that on the Patreon.
Yeah.
The ship is gone. It's a government cover-up. Boom, boom, boom. Cousin Eddie shows up to the farmhouse, Colonel Freeman, but I'm going to keep calling him Cousin Eddie because it's funny.
That's fine.
And as you're watching the clips, if you're listening to just the audio of this, just please, you should check out the YouTube as well because I promise you he looks just like Randy Quaid.
If you're an audio listener, dude, what are you doing?
What are you doing? No, we do appreciate and love you, but
Yeah, no.
But what are you
Leave
doing?
a 5-star review. But what are you doing?
Cousin Eddie shows up to the farmhouse and interrogates the farmer about Raynor. He wants to know where Raynor went. So suddenly Cousin Eddie knows that Raynor's in the past, and now we've kind of set him up as like a villain in the movie.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. How did he know he was there?
I don't know.
Yeah.
He somehow tracked Raynor to this location and is interrogating the farmhouse owner, and then first awesome kill of the movie. The rest of the kills kind of go down from here.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not any like cool kill moments really, but he kills him. He does death by scalp massage.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll definitely put in a clip, but he just grips him
his head
like a basketball,
Like he's palming a ball.
He's just dead. He's just dead.
And it's awesome. You don't hear any like cool sound effects or anything. He's
Nothing. Yeah.
He just looks
no,
like one of those
cracking. It's just like he's just sitting there, and all of a sudden blood comes out of his mouth.
Freeman then tracks Cousin Eddie. Freeman tracks Raynor to a diner, and Raynor is there trying to figure out where the military base is.
So the reason that Raynor goes to the diner is because he can see the future. How? Why? Because he can. I don't know.
He just has weird like That's So Raven flashbacks.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I thought they were going to explain it in some way, but no. Yeah, he just has That's So Raven flashbacks that everyone around him can see. It makes no sense. It's
And the
like,
visual effects look absolutely terrible for that too.
Yeah. Well, again, this movie was made for $20, so
Yeah. So Rayner's at the diner. He saves a woman from getting shot, and then he is trying to figure out where the local Air Force base is, because for some reason he knows there's an Air Force base, and I guess his most logical conclusion is if my escape pod is missing, it must be the military that's taking it.
Yeah.
The gunfight ensues. Cousin Eddie pops in. Rayner saves the waitress's life, and then Karen, the scientist, who we have no idea where she's been or what she's been up to. For some reason, she knows that Rayner's at the diner, so she pulls up in her car, and she's like, get in, and saves his life, sort of being the Sarah Connor character to the Terminator.
Yeah.
They're kind of setting her up as maybe like the young heroine who's going to like help Rayner to save the day, maybe.
Yeah. The scientist lady, Karen, picks up Mark Hamill from the diner and takes him to her house where like her scientist partner guy is. They know that he's from the future for some reason. Maybe it's because Cousin Eddie is chasing him. I guess they just infer that. And then when they get back to the house, he has a vision. It's, I guess, projecting from his mind. He has a That's So Raven moment. She's like, sees it. And then he suddenly just out of nowhere realizes, oh, you're an alien. The scientist lady is an alien.
Rayner's like, you got shot and you didn't feel it, so you must be an alien.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, so she has blood on her hand, and he's like, you got shot and you didn't even feel it.
They don't feel, but they get shot later.
I know, it doesn't.
What the
it's
hell,
a huge
dude?
plot.
What
It's a
the
huge
hell?
plot hole.
He realizes she's an alien, and that's when the movie gets even more confusing to me, because it's like, okay, so at this point I was like, oh, are they going to do a twist thing where it's like it's actually the US government that is the bad guys that were like trying to do something on this alien planet, and they, were hurting these aliens, and so that's why the aliens are attacking in the future. It doesn't even take that direction at all. But that's where I thought they were going when they revealed that she was an alien.
I wasn't even thinking that deeply about it.
I know. I was trying to make a better movie out of it than it was.
You tend to do that. You're like, oh, okay, well, like
I want it to be good.
You give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm sitting here going, wait, so she's an alien, but the aliens are the bad guys, so why is she helping him? That's as far as my thought process went.
Why is she helping him, and why does he trust her?
For seemingly no reason.
Yeah.
Freeman, Cousin Eddie, shows up to the house. Suddenly he knows where they are.
Yeah.
And he asks Carl, the friend who stitched up Mark Hamill. He's like, I know you're hiding him. Where is he? Mark Hamill's character, Rayner, and Dr. Karen run out the back door, hop in a car.
They leave the house. A car chase ensues between Cousin Eddie and Mark Hamill and Karen in their front car. It's hard to describe it as a car chase because they never go more than like 30 miles an hour.
Like a leisurely drive.
Yeah, a leisurely drive. And it's funny because they splice in like random reaction bits of Mark Hamill in the car. And there's a particular one where like nothing happens in the car chase, like nothing eventful. Like the bad guy's not like swerving them off the road or anything. They're just like following.
The cars aren't hitting each other.
Yeah. And Mark Hamill goes, "This guy's crazy. This guy's crazy." It's just like, what did he do to make you feel that way?
He's going 30 kilometers an hour at a leisurely pace behind you. We cut to, as the car chase is happening, we cut to a junkyard. And we see kind of a mechanic guy. His boss is like, Arnie, come on, get back to work. And Arnie just goes behind like a pile of trash with a Playboy magazine and is like, yeah.
He's cranking it.
Go fuck yourself, turd brain.
And he sneaks into like an airplane that's just like sitting there on the junkyard.
Yeah.
So he like sneaks into this airplane, presumably to go like touch himself.
Yeah. But then he accidentally falls asleep.
Which I'm assuming he just like went a little too hard. Yeah. he was enjoying his adult magazine too much.
He got too deep into the gooning and just passed out.
Oh, Arnie. The car chase continues, and eventually Karen and Rayner end up at that same plane.
They somehow lose the car, or like the car that's chasing them, and they end up at the plane.
Well, we should take this fight to the sky, and so they run into the plane.
That would have been a great line.
Mark Hamill's character Rayner says he has to get to his flight recorder, which is a device that was in the UFO that crashed with him. It'll be the smoking gun that he can take to the government and say, hey, I really am from the future, and there's an imminent alien attack, and I can help you prevent this.
Yeah.
So that's our big like mission for the movie now. We are pretty deep into the film at this point when we finally get this is
It was like
45 minutes into the
at
movie,
least, yeah.
and finally they have like a mission. They're not just like meandering about. And then as they're discussing this plot, they need to sneak into the military base, find the flight recorder device in the UFO. They're describing aliens and the alien invasion. And then Arnie, the guy who was cranking it to the Playboy, we cut to him. Turns out he's been asleep in the back of the plane the whole time.
Yeah.
He pops through the curtain from the back.
Aliens, right?
And they bring him along for some reason.
They're totally sold out on having Arnie be a part of the crew.
Yeah.
And the theme of Mark Hamill just his character obnoxiously trusting anyone that the plot needs him to continues, because this guy is like just some rando. And the first thing Mark Hamill says to him, he's like, "Can you sneak us into a military base?" He's like, hey, dude who's been cranking it in the back of a plane and fell asleep.
You seem like you know a lot about breaking into government compounds.
You seem like the kind of crack team that we need to pull off this heist. And so he just asked this rando, like, "Can you sneak us into a military base?" And
This is how January 6th happened. This is like the origin of that. Hey,
They convince Arnie to help them get in the military base, so they land the plane near a farmhouse where one of Arnie's moonshining buddies has hidden a truck.
It just somehow happens to like know the person whose barn it is, gets them a car.
This is where we start in the movie. We start cutting back to the future.
Right.
So we're intercutting now Mark Hamill, Rayner's timeline in the past in 1992 with the actions that are taking place in 2022.
Which is the planet being invaded by aliens.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we introduce another main character for us. His name is President Neela. And he's
president.
He's the president of the world.
It sounds like a child wrote it. Like, God, it's the president of the world.
The president of the world is named Neela. The scientists are trying to figure out how to eradicate the alien invasion, and their plan is basically to nuke the aliens and themselves.
We should also point out, like, as the aliens are like storming their base, they just look like humans. Like, there's not like a true form. They just are humans, I guess.
Yeah, the aliens are just dudes.
Yeah.
They're just like Canadian extras.
With like, deep, warped voices.
So then we cut back to Rayner in 92, and Rayner is sneaking into the military base with Karen and Arnie. They are trying to find the flight recorder. They end up reaching the flight recorder. It's a really intense moment. And for some reason, we're not sure who planted the bomb or why, but the entire military base just ends up exploding.
Yeah.
Which was pretty sick.
Yeah, yeah. We should also say that this is like the rolling theme of like these stretched out scenes. Like this one goes on for way longer than it needs to. It's very unexciting. Like there's no dialogue being said. It's just like people walking around for so long.
We should also mention, so we cut back to the future and we see President Neela again. And this is where we should mention President Neela is played by Brian James, who played Leon in Blade Runner.
Right.
So we cut back to the future where Leon from Blade Runner, the president, is now getting held at gunpoint by the scientists. They whip out some guns and they're like, you know what? We're not going to go with your plan. We're not going to surrender to the aliens. And so they start holding the president at gunpoint and continuing with their plan to like drop some nukes and eradicate the aliens.
Yeah, I guess like even though they are like at a US base, presumably, they are having to like hack into the nukes and it takes like a really long time. And that's what the like ticking clock is of the future.
We cut back to 1992. Arnie is in the truck with Karen. Rayner mentions that Karen again is an alien, which she confirms.
Yeah.
And Arnie is like so taken aback by this, but seemingly not phased because he says,
No, dude.
Too bad. Better look into Mrs. Carroll back home.
Thanks, Artie.
You're more human than you think.
they end up going to some nondescript scientific lab that maybe Karen has access to. They have the flight recorder thing now. They plug it in just like a VHS tape, and they watch back essentially footage from the future that proves that Mark Hamill is actually from the future. And
it shows like what's going to happen, like the space station,
the whole invasion.
Yeah.
So they're like, we have to go to Seattle and get in touch with now Senator Neela, who hasn't become the president yet, but because Mark Hamill knows he's the president in the future, if he can reach him now, maybe Senator Neela can do something to prevent the war.
And then we cut back to the future where the aliens finally break in, I guess, to like the main room where they're trying to like hack the nukes or whatever, and they have President Neela at gunpoint. And it's at this point where he somehow like gets the gun as the aliens are coming in and he shoots all of the guys. And then his voice switches over and we realize that President Neela is an alien. And you'll notice, if you're smart, you know, we'll put a little caption thing up on the screen here. Neela spelt backwards, I am Lord Voldemort.
Back in the past, now Senator Neela in 92 is having a rally, and he's up there on the stage talking about how he's going to shape a better future. Raynor and Karen end up attending the rally, and then Cousin Eddie enters the space, and he is marching through again in slow motion.
So slow.
Freeman, Cousin Eddie, is looking like a washed up like Backstreet Boys member, and he's wearing a long leather trench coat, and he's just kind of going through the crowd. There's no combat at this point.
Not at all. There's not like, I guess we don't know what side he's on. We don't know if he's like an alien or a human at this point. So it's like, maybe we could say that like, oh, it's going to be like an assassination attempt or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like at this point, it doesn't seem like it's ramping up to anything. And it doesn't.
And he's kind of hunting down Raynor and Karen.
Yeah.
And then eventually they make it to Neela as he's getting off stage, and they're like, Mr. President. And he's like, I'm not the president yet. And they're like, we're from the future.
The reason that he like believes Mark Hamill is because Mark Hamill calls him Mr. President. And he's like, I guess he's just flattered by that.
Like the guy walks up to him, the senator, and is like, Mr. President. And he's like, yes.
That is me.
It's inevitable.
Yes.
It's inevitable. Raynor convinces Neela to like let him plead his case. He's like, I'm from the future. Millions of people are going to die if we don't talk. And Neela's casually like, no, this guy isn't a security threat at all. Come with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
This whacked out conspiracy theorist is, totally believable.
Yeah.
Raynor goes to meet with Neela privately in his office. Him and Karen show up, and Neela's just sitting there kind of menacingly in a chair doing his classic.
Looking like a bad guy.
Looking like a classic bad guy. And so Mark Hamill and Karen enter the room, and then, oh no, out from the shadows, Cousin Eddie steps up next to him. And that's when Mark Hamill puts it together that, oh no, Neela's a bad guy.
He's also an alien.
He's also an alien. Neela turns to Karen, and she's like, don't kill him. He's still good for our plan. And then Mark Hamill turns and realizes, oh, so Karen's also a bad guy.
Which it's like, what was the point? What was the point for her? She was like, oh, we can study him or something. It's like, why?
Raynor is now like watching everyone he's trusted for the whole film. It's finally like, I guess he's finally getting clued in that he is just has horrible judge of character.
Yeah, you're telling me this alien that I trusted for no reason ended up not being a good guy? Oh, okay, cool.
He has no reason to believe that any single alien is good.
Yeah.
Because they're trying in the future to invade and destroy the human race. And he's like, I'll trust this one.
Yeah.
Not all aliens.
For no reason. Yeah, not all aliens are bad. And there's not like a will they, won't they either with them. There's not like any chemistry like romantically between them.
No.
Like obviously like on the one hand, yeah, that might be cliche and it probably wouldn't have been handled well in this movie, but there's also not like any kind of sympathy whatsoever. It's just like very flatly like, yeah, I'm an alien and I'm not one of the good ones actually.
Raynor ends up escaping Cousin Eddie, and then the henchmen start kind of chasing him down, and we noticed a familiar face in one of the henchmen. Yeah,
so as he's getting away, he's being chased by Cousin Eddie and Michael Pillow of My Pillow fame.
Before Fox News really popped off.
Yeah.
He had a great career.
This was before he was even like addicted to crack, actually. Yeah, this was pre-crack. We see him post-crack now, but this was pre-crack, so it was kind of
pre-crack. Mike Lindell is credited.
The title pre-crack.
Dude, I love like every time I've known somebody who's like super into that guy to like buy one of the pillows. I've never heard anyone give it a good review.
I have not either. Yeah,
I've always heard
even people
who
are like about that life or like the pillow actually does suck though.
but like to be serious, it's like a shitty pillow.
Yeah.
I love the
I
idea.
wouldn't know. I've not tried it.
Is that just like the dad version of buying like Kylie Cosmetics?
My Pillow, Rudy Coffee, Rudy Giuliani has a coffee brand. It went completely belly up by the time they were trying to release his coffee, but there is an ad out there and we will include it.
Rudy Coffee, rich, chocolatey.
Mark Hamill is being chased by Michael Pillow and Eddie, Cousin Eddie, And he hops in the truck because Arnie is, of course, just there. I did like that scene. I mean, they're needlessly like swerving all over the place, but I did think it was like a fun little stunt thing of him like hanging out the car.
Yeah, that was
out
cool.
The truck, he like hanging.
Yeah, that was
hanging
cool.
out the door. This is a nice little visual.
It makes no sense because it's like, why didn't he just slow
hop
down?
in the car?
Just hop in the car.
The door's open. Like, what are you doing?
It almost feels like Arnie's trying to shake Raynor off the car.
Yeah, it does.
He's like,
It
psych.
does feel that way. Yeah.
So Raynor has like a "That's So Raven" moment again, and realizes the whole plot of Leon from Blade Runner and Cousin Eddie and all the baddies is to kill his mother.
Oh, that's right.
Because it's the day before Raynor's birthday, his actual birthday.
Yeah.
And so we cut to his mom is just like alone, pregnant, like waddling around, and some dude just comes in and like caps her in the head.
Yeah.
And Raynor's like, oh no, I have to save my mommy. And so he like gets in the car with Arnie and he's like, we have to go to my mom's house. Yeah. So they show up to Raynor's mom's house. They come in and he's like, mommy, like I had to save you. And then the henchmen pop in. A little gunfight ensues, and Raynor's trying to get his mom, who's pregnant. He's trying to get her like out and into an ambulance to get to a hospital so she can safely deliver him. And once the henchmen pop in, Dr. Karen also shows up and shoots one of the henchmen. So she's had a change of heart within about 2 scenes.
Right.
And she's no longer a bad guy.
But as the guy that she shot is falling, he pops one off into Raynor's mom's chest.
Yep. So now Raynor's mom is still pregnant. She's shot. She's dying. Ambulance shows up.
She is still pregnant. She didn't miraculously stop being pregnant.
She's giving birth as she falls down.
Yeah.
The baby's sliding out.
So they're in the ambulance at this point. It's Mark Hamill, Karen, and an EMT, delivering the baby. The baby comes out and is not crying. So there's like this tension of like, oh, is Mark Hamill's baby version going to survive? Karen's holding it, but they're not like doing, resuscitation or anything on the baby. They're just like holding it, maybe like with the force.
They're doing some like Mr. Miyagi hands over the baby.
Yeah, like reflexology, that sort
They have
of
some
thing.
essential oils they're rubbing on the upper lip.
Jesus Christ. So they don't realize that the ambulance driver is taking them to this like undisclosed building, right? Which like at that point, why could the ambulance driver, who is an alien, who is in on the plot or whatever, why could he not just kill them? Like, why do they need Mark Hamill and the baby to be alive? They don't, because they were going to assassinate his mom. Why could they not just kill her? They don't. They get to this thing. They take him in.
The ambulance driver like spins around and shoots the EMT.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like a cool moment because it's like plot twist. The ambulance driver was in on it. He's driven them directly into the hands of our evil villain.
When he could have just shot them. But
the movie gets very boring from this point on, and I think we should kind of just gloss over a lot of the combat that happens here because it's a total slog.
It is a total slog. Aside from 2 insanely jacked aliens who have perfect mullets, it is a very boring, dry action scene.
Shout out to the mullet aliens. I have all the respect in the world for the way they perfectly quaff those damn mullets. There's guns fights happening. Cousin Eddie's there. Senator Neela, the alien guys there, they're all fighting, and Mark Hamill's trying to best them, and it seems like the alien guys have finally gotten the upper hand, and then who pops up out of nowhere and like saves the day?
It's Arnie with an M16.
Arnie has an M16 now. He doesn't just crank it in planes. He doesn't just help commit treason. He doesn't just operate as an escape driver. The real hero of the film is Arnie.
Aliens.
Because he is, if nothing else, not just a junkyard guy. He is also a master marksman.
I think your alien visa just expired.
They kill all the bad guys, and the baby is like now crying, so the baby survives.
Somehow, miraculously, the baby's
just
alive
fine
now. Like, we're good.
Yeah. And then Mark Hamill's character starts disintegrating.
He's getting Thanos snapped. Back to the Future.
Yep. And he says, I guess by living in the past, I really could change the future.
Sick.
Time Runner.
All right, so talking about Mark Hamill's career, obviously this is like a Mark Hamill highlight episode, right? A lot of people know him obviously from Star Wars, but nowadays people know him as this prolific voice actor. He voiced the Joker in a lot of like Batman cartoons.
Yep.
He voiced Firelord Ozai in Avatar.
My personal favorite.
Yeah,
Firelord Ozai
yeah.
was so sick.
Yeah, sick as hell in Avatar: The Last Airbender. He was just in like the most recent Miyazaki movie in the dubbed version, I believe, The Boy and the Heron. So a lot of people know him for that now. So he has had a great career overall, right?
Yeah,
but
totally.
There was this, little interim between Star Wars and the voice acting where he was just in so many terrible sci-fi movies.
By 1993, by the time this movie came out, we read a fact that said that he had been in 9 sci-fi movies.
Yeah. Presumably 3 of those are Star Wars, to be fair.
But 6 other post-Star Wars low-budget sci-fi movies.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's
and
insane.
It's also, it's an unfortunate comparison to make, but 1993, when this movie came out, also was when The Fugitive came out, starring Harrison Ford.
Yeah, and we're not clowning Mark Hamill. Like,
No.
obviously, Star Wars, him being such an iconic and recognizable character, it's pretty well known that, like, that does make it tough to get work on that scale without the character being associated with Luke Skywalker. And it is weird that Harrison Ford is in these blockbusters.
I think that is probably what helps him, is like he was doing other iconic shit at this, like, sort of when Star Wars was coming out, because Blade Runner came out before Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So he'd already been in, like, which I guess it flopped, but still, like, people love that movie. Like, he's more well renowned at this point. And he just, I guess, ended up having a better career because of it. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe he was more bankable because he was just, Han Solo was such like a character in the movie. He wasn't he wasn't the overt hero of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I think he probably benefited from that, being on the peripheral as like a very colorful side character who's very lovable. I think gives him kind of an edge. Okay, in terms of review, you said 6% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. How do you feel that this movie stacks up?
Man, I'm gonna probably agree with the 6%. I can't really think of any redeeming qualities. I mean, obviously, like, we have a good laugh at the expense of Arnie, Michael Pillow, it's been a good conversation.
Brian James constantly doing this,
doing
like his menacing
Dr.
hands.
Evil,
$1 million.
Yeah, exactly. But other than that, I can't really think of anything redeeming about this movie.
No, in terms of flavor of bad, where do you rank it? So bad it's good, terrible watch, dumpster fire.
It's definitely a slog. If you like cut down the action scenes, even if it makes them more incoherent, I don't care. If we just trim it down, that would be a little bit better. But as it stands, it's just it's not a so bad it's good quality. Not at all.
Not at all.
Do you agree?
No, yeah, this movie has no redeeming qualities. I can't think of a single highlight. I would say Mark Hamill, but because the dialogue is so bad, his performance as a result does kind of suffer.
Yeah.
And so it's just not, except for my favorite line of the pod. What happened to the pod? But yeah, I mean, I can't think of a single redeeming quality of this movie. It was an absolute dumpster fire. It was a horrible watch.
If they had made the movie I thought they were going to make, which is like this sort of like, oh, who's the real bad guy? Is it the aliens, or is it like the United World that we're attacking the aliens? It's like, no, it's just your classic aliens have infiltrated the government. We don't know who to trust, so we just trust everyone.
That is what Rainer does the entire time. Is any masturbatory sidekicks that pop up, he's like, you're in on the heist.
You son of a bitch, you're in.
You son of a bitch, I'm in.
I think that just about wraps it up for the Time Runner episode of Big Name Bad Movie. Thank you everybody for watching. Please like, subscribe, give us the 5-star review, all that fun stuff. And I'll probably cut in something to promote this, but we are also going to be doing some Patreon content here soon. We've tried to make this as affordable as humanly possible for like anyone who wants to join. We have multiple price tiers. We would really love for you to join us there. We're going to be having extra minisodes, extra uncut episodes, tons of cool photo content, video content, written content, and we're even toying with the idea of doing some like live stream call stuff where you can talk movies with us if that interests you.
The possibilities are endless.
We might even get partially nude.
Yeah. Get in on the ground floor. Watch this space.
Hey, let's build. Thank you guys for watching.
Peace.